Good afternoon, lovers and fighters. This is Constance A. Dunn broadcasting from Belgrade, Serbia. This is the first interview. It was done off location, meaning not on my red couch with cigars and red wine, as I so fantasized, but at the American Corner in Belgrade, inside of a lecture hall with an audience of hundreds. Actually, it was probably about 30 people, but 30 enthusiastic people might as well be hundreds. So I interviewed an author, Thomas Rose Masters. Now, he's actually Serbian. I won't reveal his real name to protect the identities of the innocent. However, Thomas Rose Masters is his published name. He writes in English, and he writes some very interesting stuff. So the following is my interview with Thomas Rose Masters. I do so hope you enjoy. And I may be interjecting here and there to clarify a couple points. And until then, I'll see you at the end. Ciao, lovers and fighters.
If I could find ways to defy genre categories, which is what they actually are. They are patterns within which the writer moves, creating a certain sense that each specific genre demands. When people ask me what genre my book is, I have trouble answering because I'm not really sure if it fits into any specific category, but I usually tell them it's a psychological, literary suspense story, because what my idea was, it was to take the like very well-known elements of genre, the tropes that exist in every genre, especially in crime fiction, and try to subvert them in a kind of subtle way without deconstructing too much, because that would have gone into postmodernism, which I did not want. And to use these elements of genre to make a story that would predominantly ask questions, because crime fiction genre usually gives answers, and it's all about giving answers, and it's all about posing a mystery at the outset of the novel and then working towards a conclusion that would be like a very final conclusion, a resolution. I wanted to play around with that a little bit. And when I say play around, it sounds kind of like I was having fun. I wasn't really having fun doing it. It was more of a mission, if that's not too grand a word to use for this short novel. So basically,
Genre, a category of artistic composition as in music or literature, characterized by similarities in form, style, or subject matter.
Basically, avoiding the patterns and using the patterns in a way which might be a little bit more original. I guess that was my idea.
What was it a struggle to break these patterns that you had grown up
yes.
reading?
Oh yes. Oh, it's always a struggle, because like when you have patterns, they are very easy to fall into. They're very comfortable because that's why they're for, and a lot of readers actually read crime fiction or any kind of genre fiction because they know what to expect, and they go into the reading process knowing what to expect. So I was trying to get as far away from that as possible, which would mean that every time I felt that there would be a kind of a piece of a plot point that would be very logical. Within crime fiction, I was going for subverting that plot point and giving something else instead. So some readers that have read the book have found it a little bit too open or too inconclusive, which was my definite intention to make it such.
And one of the ways you also break genre is using the family as a premise for the psychological thriller, which your usage of the word inconclusive inspired me to talk about family, because it is a very inconclusive thing. You don't know what's going to happen. And that's something that is unusual for the genre of psychological thriller. This choice of an intimate subject matter, what inspired that? And was this yet another challenge for yourself to approach something so sacred in such a dark or dangerous sort of way?
Forgive the interruption. This is Constance again from the couch. I want to talk a little bit about sacred cows, because Thomas Rose Masters goes in to talk about how he hates them and he wants to destroy them. So I did a little research, and I found out where the term sacred cow was first used to refer to something untouchable or that cannot be criticized. The first appearance is in an American newspaper from Janesville, Wisconsin, from an Indian immigrant, Mr. Jahid. And he writes to he is writing, to somebody he holds in a high reverence. And this letter was printed in a newspaper in Wisconsin. To the most eminent Kali Ramon, High Brahmin at Benares, India. The religion of the Hindu is now well established here, but I find many things to correct. For instance, the grain which they bring as an offering to the goddess Bhavani, which they pronounce brewery, they work up into a liquor which they drink in honor of the gods, instead of feeding it to the sacred bulls and cows. They also eat the flesh of animals and do other vile things. Kiss the sacred cow for me, and may Durga bless you at all times. From your slave, Wadi Jahid. And this is the first mention of sacred cow inside of the American press in the late 19th century. The term is now regularly used in the press to talk about ideas or certain leitmotifs of society that are considered beyond criticism, untouchable to be critiqued by anybody. It was sometime in the 1960s, people started to elaborate on this phrase, and a quote, "Sacred cow makes the best hamburger," was mistakenly attributed to Abby Hoffman, but actually it was the Commissioner of Education in New York City in the late 1960s that coined that phrase. And I would have to say, from talking with Thomas about his new work, that sacred cow to him does indeed make the best hamburger.
Be claustrophobic, that it was going to have to be closed off into its own little box of a world. And that's why you'll see when you read the book that there aren't many different settings in the book. What takes place in the novel mostly takes place within just one very specific setting, which is
this idea of incorporating fantasy into your thriller, where does that come from? Is this something from your childhood that you're carrying into the darker realms of adult family life? Or is this, like you had mentioned to me when we spoke before, your fascination with horror films as a child?
Yes.
How does that incorporate to how you've added fantasy to the Birdman cycle?
When you talk about fantasy, as much of it as there is in the book. David Lynch. I think that's who's responsible for my flirtation with fantasy. I've seen a lot of his films when I was a child, and most specifically, I watched Twin Peaks when I was about 8 or 9, and that has made an indelible impression on me. So much so that a lot of my dreams from that moment on were actually like snippets out of David Lynch film, and there are two dream sequences in the novel. Both of them are actually my own dreams. I've had those dreams quite a long time ago, but they've stayed with me very passionately throughout the years. So, in a sense, the whole novel kind of spun out of these two, because it was extremely hard to write for me. And since I'm that kind of writer who outlines a lot before they write, so after I finish the first draft, I usually don't find a lot of things to revise. Or if I do find them, I'm quite lazy to do it. So only when I'm made to do it by my editor is when I actually admit to having to make any changes. But this dream sequence I found it terrible to write, because nothing that I was able to write could approach the sense that I had from my experience when I was dreaming it, or how I was feeling about it. So this is what I finally came up with. The dream in the novel is dreamt by a little 5-year-old girl who you can see here at on the cover with the head of the fish. We can talk about the imagery later. This girl is 5-year-old. She's very precocious. She's very talented. She's a talented painter already. And in a way, she is one of the consciousness in the book that gives quite a lot of insight into street, no longer a street, no longer just a street. A river where the cars used to go, and the river muddy and fast. Sun shining the wrong way. The air ochre, number 23 in her collection of crayons. If only she were older, she would know a sepia-tinted world. She is older, able to think, feel older, and she stands